I just want to start this video off by asking a question. Were you slightly confused while watching No One Gets Out Alive? Who was Arthur Wells? What's with all the moths and butterflies? Who was the old woman ghost? Why was she chasing other ghosts? What does that big monster represent? Why did Ambar have to kill her mother in her dream? Was Freya alive or dead in the bathroom? Why the green powder and the veins on Ambar's face? What does the ending mean? What is this movie trying to say? Well, I'm here to help you out. I was debating with myself for a little while about whether or not to make this video, but eventually I realized that there are actually plenty of interesting ideas about what these ghosts and symbols and main characters all represent, as well as some really fascinating ancient rituals. So to break it down, I'm going to use 3 themes. 1, ritual sacrifice, where we'll discuss the first prelude, Arthur Wells, the ancient box, the muffled tape recording, Mary Wells, the old woman ghost, the other women ghosts, and the second prelude. 2, ancient Mesoamerica, where we'll discuss Becker's sacrifices, the red streaks on Ambar's face, Freya's death and the ghost in the bathroom, the green powder, and the big head-eating monster. And 3, vulnerability of immigration, where we'll talk mostly about the ending, discussing Kinsey's lie, Ambar's final dream sequence with her mother, Becker's death, Red's death, the pulsating veins, and the moths and butterflies, and much more. And if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and a comment, it helps so much. And if you want to see more of these, please make sure to subscribe as well. Let's get started. Theme number 1, ritual sacrifice. I'd say the best place to start with this analysis is with the first prelude of the film. In the opening scene of this movie, we get this 1960s film recording. The title cards at the bottom indicate that this recording is taking place in Mexico in 1963. They also indicate that the man leading this expedition is named Arthur Wells. And the prelude concludes with an ancient box being lifted from a super deep cave. And of course, if you finish this movie, you'll know that this ancient box contains an ancient mythological spiritual creature. So let's discuss what this all is. Close to the end of the film, Red explains that Arthur Wells, the guy we saw during the prelude, is the father of Red and his brother Becker. After finding this ancient box, Arthur Wells kept the box and began using its spiritual powers. And the way the box works is, it contains this ancient mythological creature that we see in the climax of the movie, and this creature feeds on the heads of its victims, and in return, gives the person offering the sacrifice some sort of supernatural reward. We learned this earlier in the film when Ambar sneaks into the study room and switches on the tape player. When she puts on the headphones, she hears, "As performed within the ritual sacrifice, you will then give her the elderly, women, children. In return, you'll receive the blessings." We never learn what Arthur Wells was specifically being rewarded with by making these sacrifices for this creature, but I would assume this creature was rewarding him with improved health or youth of some sort. And throughout this video, I think you'll get a clear understanding of why I'm making this assumption. But we do learn from Red that Arthur was sacrificing countless women in order to gain whatever the blessing was that he was addicted to. Red says, "We saw what he'd done to those girls. He made Mom help him, and then he killed her too." Red and Becker's mother is Mary, which we learn when Ambar discovers the photo of Mary and Arthur together in the study room. And it's in these various supernatural horror sequences of the film that we see the ghost of Mary and the ghosts of the victims reenacting what happened when these victims died. We see women running away from Mary as she chases them down to use them as sacrifices for her husband Arthur. In this sequence, Mary says to a ghost girl, "I must prepare you, or else Arthur will hurt us both." And the ghosts of these female victims all continue to live and wander around this building. We also see Mary in the second prelude of the film, where she and the creature are haunting a tenant who arrived before Ambar. Theme number 2, ancient Mesoamerica. Red eventually mentions that he and Becker killed their dad, Arthur. "We did the world a favor by getting rid of our dad." This is why we see Arthur's face scratched out in one of the photos with Mary. But then Red also mentions that Becker eventually also began making sacrifices for the creature in the box. Every sacrifice for the creature would temporarily heal him from his illness. And this is what brings us up to speed with the whole climax of the film. This entire sacrifice ritual is loosely based on ancient Mesoamerican culture. Sacrifice was a really important part of Mesoamerican Mesoamerican culture thousands of years ago. These sacrifices were done in order to please the gods and protect the health and well-being of the population. And this perfectly relates to the way the sacrifices work for Becker, healing his sickness, as well as Ambar, healing her ankle, which we'll talk a little more about later. This is why Ambar discovers a book titled Early Mesoamerican Rituals in the study room of the building. She also finds these illustrations indicating an old Mesoamerican ritual where human sacrifices are losing their heads. This, of course, foreshadows the eventual fate of the sacrifices in the movie, where the big creature from the box eats the heads of the women being sacrificed. The Aztecs of Mesoamerica were known for painting and powdering their face and body different colors using the natural resources around them. This visual also ties in with the shot earlier where we see 3 faint red streaks on a Mesoamerican skull. We also see these 3 streaks on the face of Freya's ghost behind the curtain. Freya was killed after meeting Ambar and being trapped below Ambar's floor. And these shots here, actually, are what this whole final ritual of this movie is imitating. We see skeletons chained in the cave, just like the girls chained to the beds, and various Mesoamerican symbols carved into stone. And when it comes to the inspiration of the design of this creature for the film, it seems like this creature was inspired by various Mesoamerican mythological creatures. I was reading into these different beasts, and many of them seem to have these spiritual powers like putting curses on people, removing curses from people, and improving health and well-being of people, as well as aggressively killing people and other creatures. So I feel like this massive CGI monster who does all of those things is just one big culmination of different ideas inspired by these ancient Mesoamerican mythological creatures. Theme number 3, vulnerability of immigration. Part of the Mesoamerican region is located in Mexico, which ties in with the fact that the undocumented immigrants at the beginning of the film are from Mexico. And this group of undocumented immigrants includes our main character, Ambar. And throughout the film, we hear and cut to multiple broadcasts showcasing and discussing the issue of illegal immigration. And also, throughout this film, we are given an idea of what the experience is like. Ambar feels extremely lonely and helpless as she struggles to afford rent and make enough money on top of that to simply live. And most importantly for this movie, a lot of the people on the surface seem like they're helping Ambar, but they aren't actually as helpful as Ambar would hope. Red offers Ambar affordable rent, but he also bends the rules around how much and when Ambar needs to pay him. Ambar's boss gives her a job, but he likely pays her below the minimum wage and spontaneously fires her mid-conversation. Kinsey seemed extremely kind and offered to lend Ambar the money she needed to pay for her ID, but she actually ran off with Ambar's money and never spoke to her again. And overall, I think that's what this entire film is trying to represent. This apartment building and this ritual together are reflective of how new, particularly female immigrants, legal or illegal, can be manipulated, used, and mistreated with the disguise of seeming to be helpful. And sadly, it's often separation from family, ultimately, that many immigrants are forced to have in order for them to sustainably pursue a new opportunity in a new country. This is why we get this line from Kinsey where she says, "I love my family, but it would be so much easier without them." And this is why the only way to defeat this deadly supernatural creature is to let go and suffocate one's attachment to family. In order for Ambar to defeat the creature and not have her head devoured, she has to suffocate her feelings of attachment and escape the dream of her mother, who she could finally leave when she passed away in Mexico. And if she were to give in to the lasting attachment to her mother, the monster would consume her. It's a tragic, dark, and sad concept, but it's a very honest finale, which I appreciate. And of course, at the end of the film, we see Ambar kill Becker using a particular weapon that was used during the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire in Mesoamerica. And then she severely injures Red and offers his head to the big monster. And since she gave the monster a sacrifice, we see her broken ankle heal that Becker stomped on a few moments earlier. We also see the veins in her face emerging the same way Becker's veins did when he was making his sacrifices. And we see the ghost of Red standing in another room as Red becomes another one one of the wandering sacrifice spirits lurking around the building. We see one last moth in this final moment, and if you've seen the film, it's very obvious that moths are all over the place in this movie. The use of moths and butterflies in this movie are reflective of butterflies' symbolism in Mesoamerican culture. The obsidian butterfly was a powerful ruler, warrior, and goddess in the Aztec religion, and you could also say that this goddess is reflective of Ambar as a character. Butterflies symbolize death and rebirth and transformation, and I think most importantly, it symbolizes the near-death experience and reawakening of Ambar in the climax of the film. And I feel like in the very end of this film, Ambar is ultimately given a major choice. Either embrace this monster and become another one of the addicted, manipulative, sacrificing schemers you have defeated, or detach from what tried to destroy you and help uplift the many immigrant women who you will soon encounter in the near future. Alright, that's my analysis. Subscribe for weekly videos, and please send me recommendations. And please let me know what you thought about No One Gets Out Alive, because I thought it was pretty thoughtful with its themes and ideas. I hope to see you again, and thank you so much for watching. See you later.